Is it always wrong to lie, or are there times when the truth can do more harm? Welcome to an original exploration of everyday moral dilemmas with philosopher Professor Klänsi Martin and spiritual guide Daaджи. Our age is often referred to as the post-truth era. Lies and fictions are all around us. Yet no one is happy to lie. In fact, most of us think of ourselves as generally honest people. In most situations, we would genuinely prefer to speak the truth. But do we really speak the truth wherever possible? Let's hear from philosopher and author Klänsi Martin.
A study was done of university students in Stanford not too long ago at Stanford University, and it was found that the average Stanford student would lie at least 6 times a day. Other studies that have been done in the population at large have found that the average human being knowingly lies somewhere between 4 and 10 times a day. But if you just look at your own life, your own average day, you will realize that 1, you probably really make a conscious effort to tell the truth as often as possible. 2, you recognize that it takes a certain amount at least of discipline to tell the truth, effort to tell the truth. That's actually part of what we like and admire about telling the truth, is that we recognize, I think, that it is often in a very short-term way easier to tell a lie than it is to tell the truth. And third, that nevertheless we lie quite often in the course of a day. A lot more than probably we like to admit to ourselves, certainly more than we like to admit to other people, and more than we probably feel, at least, that we ought to do. But when you have this fact that on the one hand, people lie quite commonly, and on the other hand, they think that it's wrong to lie, it's a little bit puzzling, because most of the things that we think are wrong to do, we don't do with the kind of ease, fluency, frequency that we tell lies. Here's a situation I often use to introduce this topic to my own students. Suppose a friend comes to you, and he says to you, and he's a very close friend, and also maybe he's a little bit, he's a little bit sensitive, a little bit shy, maybe a little bit awkward. And he comes to you and he says, he's just bought a new pair of jeans. And he says, how do you think, I look in these new jeans? Well, the new jeans are not terribly flattering on him. They're not his best purchase. On the other hand, you know him well enough to know that if you say, those are the wrong jeans on you, he's going to be devastated. He's probably not going to buy himself another pair of new jeans for months, maybe not for a year or so. They look better than his old jeans looked. They're an improvement. It's just, but he's very sensitive. So you hesitate, and then you think, well, you know what? They actually look quite good on you. We could keep shopping. If you no, I don't want to keep shopping. If these look quite good on me, these are the ones I want to go with. And now you're kind of wondering, did I do the right thing? Did I do the wrong thing? We've all been in this situation countless times. If you think about the norms of politeness, how frequently someone has asked you, how are you doing? Or how is this haircut? Or all kinds of different questions where you felt like politeness required you to tell a lie, or the norms of caring for another person required you to tell a little lie, what we sometimes call a little white lie, or might even be a harmless lie, or merely a lie of politeness, of courtesy, of convention.
But politeness and courtesy aside, we sometimes find ourselves lying in very different situations as well. Why do we do it? What are our motivations? We now turn to author and spiritual guide Daaджи.
Another sort of lie is even Plato recommends, that is for politicians and head of the kingdoms in those days. To keep the public in good humor, they might end up sharing some white lies so that the general public, the citizens, are happy, keeping them in the dark by not sharing the full truth. We've been watching this drama all across, everywhere, in every political society, be it democratic or dictatorial. Lies have invaded and become fabric of our existence today. Self-preservation, I can give an example. Those of you who haven't seen the drama of O.J. Simpson, court drama, speaks volumes on these aspects of lies and deceits. Often, ego also forces us to lie something because ego thrives on lies, self-preservation or protecting the self-image. You may have done something wrong, but you keep on lying because, oh, what if I convey the truth? What will they think of me? Maybe they'll think that, oh, I'm such an idiot, I'm such a foolish fellow. How could I have done that? And look at that guy. Another way of looking at it is also when your desires remain unfulfilled and you're trying to grab the opportunity of fulfilling that hidden desire through lies and deceits. That's also possible. This is one of the reasons why people lie, to fulfill the desires. Either it is for self-fulfillment or for the fulfillment of desires of others. Reasons for lying, there are so many. Basic are these two, desires and ego.
Most of us think that lying is not good. We feel that dishonesty is somehow wrong. But are we correct in our assumption? What are the origins of this belief?
The idea that it is wrong to lie in the Western tradition is a very old one. And where it comes from is a notion that goes all the way back, at least to Plato and maybe to his teacher Socrates, that there is a kind of identification between the truth and the good. That is, somehow when we find the truth, we will also find the good. What is true to believe, that is, what we can see is the case, is also the right thing to believe and will ultimately benefit us to believe. And if you think that there's some kind of identification between the truth and the good, well, it doesn't take you very far before you realize that a lie is going to lead you to the bad.
So lying is viewed as bad because it is the opposite of the truth. But do we all share the same idea of what the truth is?
Many people talk about truth from their own perspective. Imagine for a moment the truth that you have realized about God and truth that I have realized about God and somebody else. And if we are at a peak of this consciousness, imagine you are standing on a Mount Everest, highest. I cannot hold the same position as you are. At the same time, when we are standing on top, you'll be facing perhaps the east or the west, and I may be perhaps facing its opposite, or north or south, and some others. So the view will be different, the interpretation will be different.
While there may be different perspectives of what the truth is, the fact remains that when we lie, we try and hide our perspective of the truth from the other. And that can have far-reaching consequences.
An 18th century German philosopher, perhaps the most famous and most influential moral philosopher in the Western tradition, along with Socrates, is a fellow by the name of Immanuel Kant. And Immanuel Kant thought that respect for each other's freedom, like respect for each other's reason, is at the very bedrock of what it means to be moral at all and to think about each other's morality at all. But now consider what it means to tell a lie. When I tell a lie to you, I'm implanting a false belief in your head. Why? With the intention to mislead you, we've said. And why? Because I know if you have this false belief in your head, it will influence your decision making. And so consequently, we suddenly recognize, gosh, when I lie to someone, I'm actually coercing that person. Lying to a person in a way is a little bit like holding a gun to them and saying, now you're going to do this. And in a way, it's even more dangerous than that, because you don't know how long that false belief is going to stay with that person. When you're just holding a gun on someone and saying, you're going to have to do this, that's a one-time thing. And probably subsequent decision-making of theirs is going to be improved because they're going to know to stay away from you, particularly on this particular subject or when you've got a gun in your hand. But when you inject a false belief into someone's head, that can stay with that person, influencing their decisions for an entire lifetime. It can be one of the very most coercive things that we do. So that is perhaps the strongest reason that lying, that we have this conviction that lying is wrong, and why I think if we are considering lying to someone, we really ought to pause, sort of take a deep breath, and ask ourselves, how coercive is this? How potentially dangerous is this lie?
While there is no doubt that the effect of a lie can last a lifetime, that a lie can actually live forever, yet that may not always be a bad thing.
One of my friends who was protected by a German lady during this Hitler period when they were gathering Jewish families and Jewish children. He was one of those boys who was given a shelter in the basement of one German family. Knock on the door used to be there every morning almost. The house lady would tell, oh no, we don't have anyone in our house. We don't know any Jewish boy or a girl passing this way. But children were hidden there in the basement. So, certain lies cannot be avoided if one is interested in greater good. Lies are okay when you are trying to protect something greater, dharma as they say, or you are trying to protect someone against violence and murder. You may speak the truth and expose these children and get them killed. What is the worth of such a truth, such a satya? It's useless.
Sometimes truth can do more harm, and lies may actually do good. There are, however, some situations where we may not need to resort to lies to avoid the truth.
You know, the great Buddhist teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, points out in one of his teachings that so much of the harm that we do in the course of a day or in the course of our lives is simply the consequence of talking. And so what we might consider doing is just talking a little bit less. Already there, he teaches, we can actually prevent ourselves from doing harm that we otherwise might do simply by being silent. And this is particularly sage advice when it comes to the question of considering putting a false belief into someone else's head, considering telling a lie. Very often, we probably all already know, but worth thinking about some more. Very often when you're considering telling a lie, all you need to do, you don't have to tell the lie, you don't necessarily have to tell the truth, all you have to do is just stay silent.
So what is the way out? Should we avoid lies at all costs? without thinking about the consequences, without thinking about what or who we are hurting? Or should we reach a more flexible and personal approach?
I have learned one thing: when you are meditating and you arrive at a certain meditative state of mind, you cannot lie easily. You cannot be violent, neither can you be untruthful. When my consciousness is so refined, when I'm so aware, fully aware, cognizant of scenarios all around me, is one way of avoiding unnecessary, uncalled for falsehood or lies. So, at any given level, I must be able to have my ethical intelligence fine-tuned so that I may be able to, so that I would be in a position to discern right from wrong, moral from immoral, beneficial versus which is not so beneficial. So this development of discerning intelligence or ethical intelligence is crucial to my existence, and especially leading a truthful existence. How can I be more and more truthful all the time? When I am able to harness the power of my consciousness and allow it to flourish under all circumstances. When I'm about to speak something to someone, I should know ahead of time if I'm going to lie, the consequences of speaking the lies or being untruthful. To avoid lying completely means staying away from falsehood. Represent what is in your heart. I'm not so much interested in facts and figures, but what your heart conveys. Is it for the overall good? Whatsoever I speak becomes the truth then, even if it's a lie.
Thank you, Daaджи and Dr. Klänsi Martin, for those valuable insights. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on this first episode of Compass. Do join us for the next episode as well. Until then, stay safe and goodbye.